12-year-old girl gave birth to a baby elephant. How will this story unfold? To find out, watch the video to the end. But first, please subscribe to my channel and turn on notifications to get more stories like this. The hospital room was still, save for the soft beeping of monitors and the faint hum of fluorescent lights above. Sunlight streamed in through the large window, casting a golden glow across the white sheets of the bed. In the center of the room, tucked into the hospital bed like any other patient, sat Lily. Lily was only 12 years old, her face bright and full of life despite her surroundings. Her chestnut hair fell softly around her shoulders, and her pale pink dress made her look more like she was preparing for a picnic than resting in a sterile hospital room. But what made the scene truly extraordinary was what she held in her arms. Nestled beneath a baby blue blanket, cradled against Lily's chest, was a small baby elephant. Its skin was wrinkled and gray, its ears soft and slightly oversized for its head. Its tiny trunk curled and uncurled lazily, occasionally nudging against Lily's arm as it let out quiet, content breaths. The little elephant slept peacefully as though it belonged nowhere else but there, wrapped in Lily's protective arms. And Lily? She beamed at the creature, her smile gentle and proud as she whispered softly, "You're safe now." Doctors, nurses, and family members had watched in silent disbelief for hours. No one spoke the words that were on everyone's minds. How is this possible? The narrator's voice echoed softly, as though sharing an ancient secret. A 12-year-old girl, holding what doctors would call her baby. It defied science. It defied reason. But what really happened? The truth is far more magical than anyone could have ever imagined. It all began a few months earlier, long before the hospital visit and long before the world knew Lily's name. Lily was like any other 12-year-old girl, bright, curious, and full of dreams. She lived in a small suburban neighborhood with her parents, her older brother, and their golden retriever, Max. Lily was always different, though not in a way that made her stand out too much, but in the quiet, thoughtful way she saw the world. While other kids obsessed over video games or the latest toys, Lily's heart belonged to animals. She collected animal books and stuffed toys, her shelves filled with elephants, giraffes, and lions. But elephants were her favorite. Every year, Lily's father would take her to the library to pick out a special book for her birthday. On her 11th birthday, she had chosen a thick book with glossy pages called Gentle Giants: The Lives of Elephants. It was filled with stories of herds roaming across the African plains, of mothers protecting their babies, and of young elephants playfully splashing in muddy watering holes. Lily would sit on her bed at night, flipping through the pages, whispering to herself as though speaking to the elephants. "One day I'll help you. I promise." Her father, a kind man with laugh lines etched across his face, would often sit beside her, smiling softly as he watched her get lost in the book. "You've got a big heart, Lily," he'd say. "The world could use more people like you." Lily would look up at him, her eyes shining. "Do you think I'll ever get to see a real elephant, Dad? Like the ones in Africa?" "Maybe someday," he'd reply, ruffling her hair. "You never know what life has in store." It was a few weeks after her 12th birthday when the dreams started. At first, they were soft and hazy, like a misty memory. Lily would find herself standing in an open field, surrounded by tall golden grass that swayed gently in the breeze. The air was warm, and the sky stretched endlessly above her, painted in hues of pink and orange. And then she'd hear it, a faint sound in the distance. A cry. Turning toward the noise, Lily would see it. A small baby elephant standing alone, its tiny trunk lifted toward the sky as it let out a soft, desperate trumpet. The baby's eyes were wide and full of sadness, searching for someone, anyone, to come to its aid. "Where's your family?" Lily would whisper in the dream, taking a cautious step forward. "Are you lost?" The little elephant would turn its head toward her, its cries softening as if it recognized her voice. Each night, the dream grew clearer. The baby elephant appeared again and again, always in the same golden field, always looking to Lily for help. Some nights, Lily would wake up in tears, clutching her pillow as her heart ached for the creature she'd never met. "Mom," Lily said one morning over breakfast, stirring her cereal distractedly. "Can dreams feel real?" Her mom glanced up from her coffee, frowning slightly. What do you mean, sweetie? Like, so real you feel like you're there? Like it's really happening? Her mom smiled softly, brushing a hand over Lily's hair. Sometimes dreams are just dreams, Lily. But the special ones? They stay with us. Maybe they're trying to tell us something. Lily nodded, but she didn't say anything else. She wasn't sure her mom would understand the dreams, or the strange, heavy feeling they left in her chest. It was a quiet night when things began to change. Lily's parents had gone to bed early, and her brother was in his room playing video games. The house was silent, save for the occasional creak of the floorboards and the ticking of the clock on the wall. Lily lay in bed, staring up at the ceiling, her mind drifting back to the baby elephant. The dream had returned again, clearer than ever. This time, the baby had looked right at her, its trunk reaching out as if begging her to help. Lily froze, her breath catching in her throat. She sat up in bed, her heart racing. The voice was faint, soft, but unmistakable. It wasn't coming from inside her head. Lily. She turned toward the window, her hands trembling as she pulled back the curtain. Outside, the yard was bathed in moonlight, the grass swaying gently in the breeze. There was nothing there, nothing but the still, quiet night. But then she felt it. A weight in her chest. A warmth spreading through her body, soft and comforting, yet heavy at the same time. Lily clutched her chest, gasping softly as tears filled her eyes. She didn't know why she was crying, only that something extraordinary was happening. Don't worry, she whispered into the night. I'll help you. I promise. The next morning, Lily woke up feeling different. Her body felt heavy, as though she were carrying something deep inside her. She tried to go about her day as usual, eating breakfast, helping her mom in the garden, but the feeling wouldn't go away. By lunchtime, she was exhausted. Her face was pale, and dark circles had formed under her eyes. Her parents grew worried and rushed her to the hospital, where doctors began running tests. Lily lay quietly in the hospital bed, her eyes half closed as machines beeped softly around her. Nurses came and went, their faces kind but puzzled. No one could figure out what was wrong. What are you feeling, sweetheart? One nurse asked gently as she adjusted Lily's blanket. Lily's voice was soft but steady. I'm not sick, she said simply. He's just getting ready. The nurse blinked, confused. Who's getting ready? Lily smiled faintly, her eyes drifting closed. The baby. My baby elephant. The nurse stared at her for a long moment before leaving the room to speak with the doctors. Everyone was confused, worried that Lily's mind was creating stories to cope with her illness. But Lily wasn't afraid. She knew something beautiful was about to happen. The hospital staff didn't know what to make of Lily's words. Doctors murmured quietly among themselves, shuffling through test results that offered no answers. Lily's vitals were stable, normal even, yet she still seemed weak, as though something was sapping her energy. Her parents stayed close, worry etched across their faces. Her father sat in the chair beside her bed, holding her hand. Lily, honey, he said softly, brushing hair away from her forehead. What did you mean earlier about a baby elephant? Lily's eyes fluttered open. She smiled faintly, squeezing her father's hand. He's real, Dad. I can feel him. He's small and scared, but he knows I'm here for him. Her father's brow furrowed, his heart aching for his daughter. He didn't understand, but he didn't argue either. We'll figure this out, he said gently. You just need to rest. Lily nodded, but in her heart, she knew the truth. Rest wouldn't change anything. Something extraordinary was happening, and it wasn't something anyone could explain. That night, Lily drifted off into a deep sleep, the hum of the hospital machines lulling her into quiet dreams. But these dreams were sharper, clearer than ever before. She was back in the golden field. The sky stretched endlessly above her, painted in shades of violet and gold. The warm wind tugged gently at her clothes, and there, standing in the tall grass, was the baby elephant. But this time, it wasn't crying. It stood still, its small body trembling as it stared at Lily with wide, trusting eyes. Its trunk stretched out, reaching for her hand. Lily knelt in the grass, tears streaming down her cheeks as she whispered, I'm here. I won't leave you. The baby elephant took a cautious step forward, then another, until it was close enough for Lily to touch. She reached out slowly, her hand brushing against its soft, wrinkled skin. A warmth spread through her body, a feeling of love, connection, and purpose that was too big for words. "You're safe now," she whispered again. The elephant let out a soft trumpet, pressing its forehead gently against her shoulder. For the first time in weeks, Lily felt whole. When she woke up the next morning, her heart was light despite the exhaustion in her body. She knew the time was close. It happened just after sunrise. Lily's parents had stepped out of the room for a few minutes to grab coffee, and the nurses were doing their rounds. The hospital was quiet, bathed in the soft, golden light of morning. Lily lay awake, staring out the window at the clear sky. She could feel it, the weight in her chest shifting, changing. She took a slow, deep breath, clutching the blanket tightly as her heart raced. And then, the monitors in the room began to beep faster, their rhythmic hum growing louder and more erratic. A nurse rushed in, her eyes wide with concern as she checked Lily's vitals. "Lily? Sweetie, can you hear me?" Lily turned her head toward the nurse, her face calm, serene. "It's happening," she whispered. Before the nurse could respond, the room seemed to shift. The air grew warmer, heavier, filled with an energy that no one could explain. Lily's body tensed, and the nurse watched in shock as something stirred beneath the blanket that covered Lily's chest. "Doctor," the nurse cried, her voice shaking as she backed away. "We need help in here." Doctors and staff rushed into the room, their faces pale as they froze at the sight before them. The blanket on Lily's lap shifted again, and then, slowly, something emerged. A small gray trunk, wrinkled and delicate, pushed its way out from beneath the covers. It curled softly in the air, almost as if testing the room around it. Gasps filled the room as the doctors watched, unable to move, unable to speak. The blanket slid further back, revealing the tiny head of a baby elephant. Its eyes blinked slowly, calm and trusting, as it let out a soft trumpet, a sound so small and gentle it could have been mistaken for a sigh. Lily smiled, tears glistening in her eyes as she reached down and cradled the baby elephant in her arms. "There you are," she whispered, her voice breaking with love. "I knew you'd come." The staff stared in stunned silence, the beeping of the machines forgotten. There, in a hospital bed, sat a 12-year-old girl holding a newborn baby elephant as though it were the most natural thing in the world. What is this?" one doctor managed to stammer, his voice shaking. "How is this possible?" But no one had an answer. News of the event spread like wildfire. Hospital staff were sworn to secrecy, but somehow, the story leaked. Within hours, reporters camped outside the hospital, cameras flashing and microphones waving as they clamored for answers. Doctors baffled by impossible birth. 12-year-old girl gives birth to a baby elephant, a miracle? Inside the hospital room, Lily sat quietly with the baby elephant curled up in her arms. Her parents, though still in shock, couldn't deny the truth in front of them. They watched as Lily stroked the elephant's soft head, humming gently to calm it. "What do we do?" her mother whispered, clutching her husband's arm. Her father shook his head, his voice filled with wonder. "I don't know. But look at her. She's happy. And so is he." The baby elephant, now named Nalu, meaning beloved in an African dialect, stayed close to Lily, as though he had known her forever. He didn't cry, didn't panic. He simply trusted her, as if he knew that she was his home. Experts from around the world flew in to examine the phenomenon. Scientists ran tests, took scans, and filled Lily's room with machines, trying to understand how a human child could possibly produce a baby elephant. But the results only deepened the mystery. "It's impossible," one doctor muttered, shaking his head as he stared at a series of scans. "There's no explanation for this." Religious leaders called it a miracle. Skeptics claimed it was a hoax. The media was divided, each outlet spinning its own version of the story. But the one thing no one could deny was this: Nalu was real. Lily's dreams, the ones she had spoken about for weeks, suddenly didn't seem like dreams at all. "It wasn't a dream," Lily explained softly when asked. "He was calling for me. He needed me to help him, so I did." Reporters asked her if she was scared when it happened, if she thought she was sick, or if she ever questioned what was going on. Lily just smiled and shook her head. "I wasn't scared," she said simply. "Sometimes when you love something enough, it finds its way to you." The room fell silent at her words, as though everyone there knew they had just heard something profound. As the days passed, Lily and Nalu became a global phenomenon. Videos of the two of them sitting together, Lily stroking Nalu's head as he curled his trunk around her arm, circulated across the internet, touching hearts around the world. The story inspired millions. Wildlife organizations reported spikes in donations for elephant conservation efforts, with people moved by the bond between a little girl and her miracle baby. In interviews, scientists admitted they still couldn't explain Nalu's appearance. "There are things science can't account for," one researcher said. "But perhaps this is a reminder of the connection we all share with the world around us." Lily didn't care about the fame or the attention. All that mattered to her was Nalu. She spent every moment with him, feeding him, talking to him, and even singing him to sleep. "He's not just a baby elephant," Lily told a reporter once. "He's my family, and I'll take care of him forever." The days inside the hospital began to blend together. Lily remained in her room with Nalu never far from her side. Doctors continued their endless tests, gently prodding and scanning, but it was clear they weren't looking for answers anymore, because none of their machines, diagrams, or scientific instruments could explain what had happened. Nalu was simply there. Lily didn't mind their visits. They mostly stood at a distance now, observing the bond between the girl and the elephant with a mix of awe and confusion. What truly baffled everyone was Nalu's behavior. He wasn't like any baby elephant they had read about. Instead of showing fear or confusion at the strange human surroundings, Nalu was calm, peaceful, and utterly at ease, as if he knew he was exactly where he was supposed to be. He would curl up in Lily's lap when she sat cross-legged in bed, his small trunk resting against her arm as he drifted off to sleep. Lily would hum softly, her voice so quiet that it seemed to calm Nalu instantly. Sometimes, she whispered to him in words only the two of them could understand. The nurses, who had been hesitant at first, began to warm up to the sight. One afternoon, an older nurse with kind eyes brought in a small bowl of cut-up fruit, bananas, apples, and melon, and left it on Lily's bedside table. "It's for your little friend," she said softly, her voice carrying just a hint of wonder. "Thank you," Lily replied, her smile lighting up the room. She took a slice of banana and held it out to Nalu, who eagerly curled his tiny trunk around it before bringing it to his mouth. The nurse watched, her eyes glistening. "I've worked in hospitals for over 30 years, she whispered. "But I've never seen anything like this." Lily looked up at her, still stroking Nalu's soft head. "He's special," she said simply. The nurse nodded, wiping a tear from her cheek as she turned to leave. Outside the hospital, the world was spinning faster than ever. News stations covered the story around the clock. Headlines flashed across television screens. "A miracle or a mystery? The girl and the baby elephant." Scientists stunned as 12-year-old cares for elephant born in hospital. Global reaction. A story that's captured hearts everywhere. Social media exploded with photos and videos of Lily and Nalu, shared by people around the world who found hope and wonder in their story. Artists began sketching the two of them together, and parents posted messages about how Lily's story had inspired their children to care about animals and nature. Lily's father sat by her bedside, holding up his phone one evening to show her. "People are writing about you and Nalu. One of the wildlife groups said they've received more donations this week than they have all year." Lily looked up at him, her eyes bright. "That means we're helping, right? That means Nalu's family will be safe?" Her father smiled, though his voice was thick with emotion. "You're helping more than you know, sweetheart." Nalu let out a soft trumpet, as if joining the conversation, and Lily laughed, hugging him tightly. "See, Nalu? They're listening to you." Outside the window, the evening sky turned a deep shade of orange, and for a moment, the world felt still, like it was holding its breath, watching something too precious to disturb. As night fell, Lily's mother sat on the edge of her bed, brushing her daughter's hair back from her face. "How are you feeling, my love?" Lily smiled, leaning into her mother's touch. "I'm okay, Mom. Nalu makes me feel strong." Her mother glanced down at the tiny elephant, its large eyes staring back at her with an almost human warmth. "Where do you think he came from, Lily?" Lily tilted her head, thoughtful. "I think he came because I called him. He was alone and he needed me, just like I needed him." Her mother's eyes welled with tears as she kissed Lily's forehead. "You have the biggest heart, sweet girl. You always have." It wasn't long before experts in wildlife conservation requested permission to visit Lily and Nalu. Lily agreed, as long as they promised not to scare him. One day, a group of conservationists, people who had spent years working with elephants in Africa and Asia, stood at the foot of her bed. One of them, a woman named Dr. Emerson, knelt down to Nalu's level, her voice soft and careful. "I've worked with elephants for most of my life," she said, her eyes kind. "But I've never seen one like him. He's calm, as though he trusts us already." Lily smiled, scratching behind Nalu's ear in the way that made him rumble with contentment. "He's not scared because he knows he's loved." Dr. Emerson nodded, blinking back tears as she looked up at Lily. "You're right. Elephants are incredibly intelligent, but more than that, they're emotional. They grieve, they love, and they protect their families. Somehow, he knows you're his family." Lily's father, who had been standing quietly by the door, cleared his throat. "What happens next?" he asked, his voice careful. Dr. Emerson stood up, glancing at the small elephant curled against Lily. "We want to take Nalu somewhere safe, a sanctuary where he can grow up surrounded by other elephants." "But," she looked at Lily, "it's clear he needs you. You're his bond, and breaking that could be harmful." Lily looked down at Nalu, her fingers brushing gently over his wrinkled forehead. "I don't want him to go anywhere he's not safe," she said softly. Dr. Emerson crouched beside the bed again, her voice warm. "Lily, if you're willing, we'd like to bring you both to the sanctuary. You can be there with him while he learns to live with other elephants." Lily's face lit up, and for the first time in weeks, she felt tears of joy slip down her cheeks. "We can go together?" "Yes," Dr. Emerson said, smiling. "You can help him feel safe while we make sure he grows up healthy and happy. And I promise, Lily, he'll always be loved." The news spread quickly. Lily and Nalu would travel to a wildlife sanctuary far away, where they would begin a new chapter together. Support poured in from around the world. Letters, donations, and messages of love for the little girl and the baby elephant who had brought people together. The day of their departure, the hospital staff gathered in Lily's room to say goodbye. Nurses brought stuffed animals and blankets, while doctors clapped Lily on the shoulder, still shaking their heads in awe at the miracle they had witnessed. "You take care of him," one nurse said softly, brushing away tears. "You two are going to do amazing things." Lily nodded, hugging Nalu tightly. "I promise." Her parents stood beside her, their hands resting on her shoulders as they watched the room fill with quiet emotion. "We're proud of you, Lily," her father whispered. "You've shown the world what love can do." The hospital doors opened, and Lily stepped outside into the bright sunlight, holding Nalu close. Reporters were kept at a distance, but their cameras flashed as they captured the sight of a small girl and her elephant, a pair that had become a symbol of hope, kindness, and wonder. Nalu let out a gentle trumpet as the wind brushed across his face, and Lily laughed, her heart full as she whispered, "It's okay, Nalu. We're going home." The sanctuary awaited them, a place where Nalu could grow and thrive, where Lily would keep her promise to him. She didn't know what the future held, but she knew one thing for certain: they had found each other for a reason. As they drove away, Lily leaned her head against Nalu's, her voice soft. "Sometimes, love makes miracles happen. And you know, you're my miracle." The little elephant curled his trunk around her arm, and for the first time in a long time, Lily felt whole. The flight to the sanctuary was quiet, save for the steady hum of the plane's engines. Lily sat buckled into her seat, Nalu resting his small head against her lap. The staff had arranged for a special transport plane to accommodate them, making sure Nalu was comfortable for the long trip. Lily's parents sat a few rows behind her, watching with cautious smiles. They were still in awe of everything that had happened, the impossible events that had changed their lives forever. But looking at Lily now, calm and happy with Nalu curled beside her, they couldn't deny the beauty of it all. From time to time, Lily whispered softly to Nalu, her voice soothing and steady. She didn't care about the cameras or the headlines anymore. All that mattered was Nalu, and the promise she had made to him. "You're going to love it there," Lily whispered, stroking his soft head. "There will be other elephants, ones just like you. You won't feel alone anymore." Nalu let out a soft trumpet, curling his trunk around her arm in response. It was as though he understood every word she said. Lily stared out the window, watching the clouds drift by as her thoughts wandered. She wondered what the sanctuary would be like. If Nalu would be happy there, if he would make friends with the other elephants. A small part of her worried that once he was surrounded by his own kind, he might forget about her. But deep down, she knew that wasn't true. The sanctuary was like nothing Lily had ever seen before. Stretching out for miles, it was a lush, green paradise, a place where elephants roamed freely under the open sky. Trees swayed in the breeze, and the air was thick with the sounds of birds, rustling leaves, and distant trumpets from the elephants already living there. When the truck carrying Lily and Nalu pulled through the gates, Lily leaned forward, her eyes wide with wonder. Nalu lifted his head, his ears flapping excitedly as he caught the unfamiliar sense of the sanctuary. "We're here, Nalu," Lily said softly, smiling down at him. "This is your home now." Dr. Emerson was waiting for them near the entrance, along with a team of caretakers. She smiled warmly as Lily stepped down from the truck, cradling Nalu close to her chest. "Welcome to the sanctuary, Lily," Dr. Emerson said. "And welcome, Nal. You're both going to love it here." Nalu let out a small trumpet, his trunk swaying as he looked around, wide-eyed. Lily followed Dr. Emerson toward a shaded area where a small group of elephants grazed peacefully. They were larger than Nalu, their strong forms a mixture of calm power and grace, but there was something gentle about them. "Will they like him?" Lily asked softly, glancing up at Dr. Emerson. "They will," Dr. Emerson replied, her voice kind. "Elephants are incredibly social. They take care of each other. Once they see Nalu, they'll welcome him like one of their own." Lily knelt beside Nalu, holding his face gently in her hands. "It's okay," she whispered. "You're safe here. You're going to make so many new friends." Nalu let out a low, content rumble, pressing his forehead softly against Lily's chest. She stayed there for a moment, hugging him close, before she finally let him go. "Go on, Nalu," she said gently. "It's okay. I'm right here." Nalu hesitated, his small trunk brushing against her arm as though asking for reassurance. Lily smiled, nodding as she stroked his head. Slowly, he turned and took a cautious step toward the other elephants. The herd paused as Nalu approached, their massive bodies turning to face him. One of the elephants, a large female with kind, wise eyes, stepped forward, letting out a soft trumpet. Nalu froze for a moment, his ears flapping nervously. Then, the female elephant extended her trunk, gently touching Nalu's head in a gesture of welcome. Nalu let out a small trumpet in response, his fear melting away as he took another step closer. The other elephants moved in, their trunks reaching out to greet him, surrounding him in a circle of protection. Lily watched, tears streaming down her cheeks as she whispered, "He's not alone anymore." Dr. Emerson knelt beside her, placing a hand on her shoulder. "You gave him a family, Lily. He'll never forget you for that." Days turned into weeks, and Lily quickly became part of life at the sanctuary. She spent every day with Nalu, feeding him, playing with him, and watching as he grew stronger. The other elephants accepted Nalu as one of their own, and it wasn't long before he began to follow them around, learning how to forage and explore. Lily laughed as she watched Nalu splash in a shallow watering hole one afternoon, his tiny trunk spraying water everywhere. He was clumsy and playful, just like the elephants she had read about in her books. "He's happy," Lily's father said, walking up beside her. Lily nodded, her heart full. "Yeah, he's..." Her father placed an arm around her shoulders, pulling her close. "You know, Lily, you've done something incredible. You gave Nalu a chance at life. And in doing that, you've inspired the world." Lily looked up at him, her eyes shining. "I didn't do it alone. Nalu chose me to..." Her father smiled, brushing a tear from his cheek as he kissed the top of her head. "You've got a way of seeing the world, Lily. A way most people forget when they grow up. Don't ever lose that. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Lily sat on a grassy hill overlooking the sanctuary. Nalu rested beside her, his small body curled up against her legs. The other elephants grazed peacefully in the distance, their silhouettes framed against the fiery sky. Lily ran her fingers over Nalu's soft head, her voice barely above a whisper. "You're going to grow up to be big and strong one day, Nalu. You'll take care of your family, and you'll teach them to be kind, just like you taught me." Nalu let out a low, sleepy rumble, his trunk curling gently around her arm. Lily smiled, tears prickling her eyes as she gazed out at the sanctuary. The world was vast, full of wonders and mysteries she still didn't understand. But in that moment, with Nalu by her side and the sounds of the herd in the distance, she knew one thing for certain: love had the power to change everything. Sometimes, love created miracles. And Nalu was hers. Months later, Lily stood at the gates of the sanctuary, watching as a group of visitors toured the grounds. People had come from all over the world to see the elephants, to hear Nalu's story and to learn about the importance of protecting animals like him. Dr. Emerson stood beside Lily, smiling as the visitors gathered near the herd. "Do you see what you've done, Lily?" she asked softly. "Because of you and Nalu, people are listening. They're caring. And they're helping." Lily smiled, her chest swelling with pride as she watched Nalu play in the distance. He was bigger now, stronger, his small size slowly giving way to the power he would one day possess. But no matter how much he grew, he still looked back at her often, as if to make sure she was watching. "Sometimes I think he saved me as much as I saved him," Lily said quietly. Dr. Emerson nodded, her voice warm. "Maybe that's the way miracles work. We save each other." Lily looked up at the sky, her heart light as the sun bathed the sanctuary in golden light. She knew the world was a complicated place, full of challenges she couldn't yet understand. But she also knew that kindness, love, and courage could make all the difference. Nalu turned toward her then, letting out a joyful trumpet that echoed across the sanctuary. Lily laughed, waving to him as tears filled her eyes. "I'll always be here for you," she whispered, as though he could hear her across the distance. And somehow, she knew he could. The little elephant who had appeared in her life as if by magic had grown into something far greater. He had become a symbol of hope, not just for her, but for the world. And as Lily stood there, watching him roam free under the open sky, she realized that miracles didn't need explanations. They just needed love. The seasons changed at the sanctuary, and so did Nalu. Months turned into a year, and the tiny baby elephant that once fit perfectly in Lily's arms grew stronger with each passing day. His legs became sturdier, his movements more confident, and his once small trumpet grew louder, more like the call of the mighty creatures he would one day join. Lily spent every free moment at the sanctuary, her bond with Nalu never wavering. Even as he began to play with the other young elephants and explore the vast grounds, he always returned to her. When Lily called his name, Nalu would stop whatever he was doing, lifting his trunk in recognition before running to her side. The caretakers, visitors, and even her parents marveled at their connection. "It's like he knows you're his family," her mother often said, watching the two of them from a distance. "He is my family," Lily would reply with a smile, brushing her hand along Nalu's growing trunk. One late afternoon, as the sun dipped low on the horizon, painting the sky in streaks of gold and purple, Lily sat in the grass with Nalu beside her. The other elephants grazed nearby, their silhouettes majestic against the fading light. The sanctuary felt alive, but in that moment, it was still and peaceful. Nalu lay next to her, his trunk resting gently across her lap, and Lily stroked his head as she had so many times before. "You're not my little baby anymore, are you?" she whispered with a soft laugh. Nalu let out a deep rumble, his large eyes meeting hers as though he understood every word. Lily smiled, tears pricking at the corners of her eyes. "You're going to be so big and strong one day," she said quietly. "You'll lead your herd and protect them the way you always wanted someone to protect you. But no matter how big you get, you'll always be my Nalu." The elephant's trunk curled upward, brushing against her arm in response. Lily blinked away her tears, hugging his head gently as the world grew quiet around them. In that stillness, Lily realized something important. She had brought Nalu into this world, through dreams, love, and an unshakable connection that no one could explain. But now it was time for Nalu to grow into the world that had been waiting for him. The thought wasn't sad. It was beautiful. One day, Dr. Emerson approached Lily with a warm smile, holding a clipboard close to her chest. "Lily, can we talk for a minute?" Lily glanced up from where she sat, brushing dirt off her jeans as Nalu splashed playfully in a nearby mud puddle. "Sure," she said, standing to face her. Dr. Emerson looked thoughtful, her voice careful but kind. "Nalu is growing fast, faster than any of us expected. He's healthy and strong, and he's learning to live with the herd just like we hoped." Lily smiled proudly, glancing toward Nalu as he trumpeted excitedly at another young elephant. "He's doing so well, isn't he?" "He is," Dr. Emerson agreed. "And it's because of you. You gave him a safe place to grow. You showed him love, and you made him brave." Lily's smile softened, sensing there was more to the conversation. "But?" Dr. Emerson knelt down slightly, her gaze steady and kind. "Nalu is going to need more space soon. He's going to join the older elephants in the wild section of the sanctuary, a place where he can roam freely, just like he's meant to." Lily's breath caught for a moment, her eyes flickering to where Nalu stood. She knew what this meant. The sanctuary had protected him, but he was no longer the fragile baby who needed her every second of the day. "Will he be okay?" Lily asked softly, her voice trembling. Dr. Emerson nodded, placing a gentle hand on Lily's shoulder. "He's ready. And he'll never forget you, Lily. Elephants never forget the ones they love." Lily looked toward Nalu, her chest tightening as she whispered, "I'll never forget him either." The following week, Lily stood at the edge of the sanctuary's wild section, where a large gate opened out into acres of untouched land. The wind blew gently across the grasslands, and Lily could see other elephants in the distance, moving like shadows across the horizon. Nalu stood beside her, larger now but still familiar, his trunk resting lightly on her shoulder as if he knew this was a moment they'd both been waiting for. Lily smiled through her tears, pressing her forehead gently against his. "You're ready now," she whispered. "This is your home. It's where you belong." Nalu let out a low, soft rumble, his trunk curling around her in what felt like a hug. Lily laughed softly, hugging him back as her tears slipped down her cheeks. "I love you, Nalu," she said, her voice shaking. "No matter how far you go, I'll always be here for you." The gate opened with a creak, and the caretakers gave Nalu a gentle nudge, encouraging him to step forward. Nalu turned to Lily one last time, his large eyes holding hers for a moment that felt like forever. Then, with a final soft trumpet, he stepped through the gate, joining the other elephants who had gathered to greet him. Lily watched as Nalu walked away, his large form disappearing into the grasslands. Her heart ached, but it was a good kind of ache, the kind that comes from loving something so deeply that you let it go so it can be free. Her father stepped beside her, resting a hand on her shoulder as they watched Nalu fade into the distance. "He'll be okay," he said softly. Lily nodded, wiping her tears and smiling faintly. "I know." Years later, Lily stood at the same spot, now older but still carrying the same bright spirit. She had returned to the sanctuary, now working as a wildlife conservationist, her life forever changed by the baby elephant who had found his way to her. The sanctuary had grown since she'd last been there. More elephants roamed the grounds, including Nalu's herd, which had thrived under his gentle leadership. Lily's heart soared as she spotted him in the distance. He was enormous now, his tusks long and gleaming, his presence commanding. He stood at the center of his herd, watching over them just as Lily had once watched over him. As though sensing her gaze, Nalu turned his head, his trunk lifting into the air in a familiar greeting. Lily laughed softly, tears filling her eyes as she whispered, "Hi, Nalu." Dr. Emerson stood beside her, smiling at the reunion. "He never forgot you," she said quietly. "You're a part of him, Lily, just like he's a part of you." Lily nodded, her heart full as she watched Nalu move through the grasslands, surrounded by his family. "He taught me that love can do incredible things," she replied softly. and that even the smallest kindness can change the world. The sun dipped low on the horizon, casting the sanctuary in golden light. Nalu's trumpet echoed across the plains, a sound of strength, of freedom, and of love that would carry on forever. As Lily stood there, watching her beloved friend roam free, she knew that their story wasn't just theirs anymore. It belonged to everyone who believed in hope, in miracles, and in the power of love to make the impossible real. And in that moment, Lily understood. Some connections are too strong to ever be broken.